Disclaimer, this video is only for the most intellectual and the most brain-rottedly unbrain-rotted goobers out there. Only the most smartest people can finish the video. Your brain might just explode if not. Viewer discretion advised. If you've clicked on this video, you probably already know the meme, and you've probably seen it show up in anime and manga too. I know you guys laughed at that one scene in the Demon Slayer movie, don't lie to me now. But even outside of that, I've just been seeing it so much in anime and manga, and I don't know why. Could it just be a coincidence? I actually don't think so. I actually think there's a reason why I've been seeing it so often. And me being the freak that I am, I looked into this number, possible cultural implications, and many other things for an unreasonable amount of time. Like, I pretty much spent an entire weekend thinking of nothing but the number 67. I'll be going into history, language and linguistics, math, and some literature, so though this video is about brain rot, I promise you that you will learn something new. Your brain will develop a little, so relax and listen to me talking about 6-7 for a bit. Why do I do this? 6-7! The meme, for some of you who may not know, is just a nonsense kind of joke. There's no real meaning as far as I can tell, and it just showed up in a popular song, and people used it in things like sports edits, saying that someone was 6'7" or 6'7", and synced that up with the song, and it just got out of hand. Think, you stupid, no I'm not, what's 9 plus 10, 21? It doesn't really mean much, it's just a nonsense joke. And when people say those two numbers sequentially, people just say 6-7 with a little hand gesture that's supposed to go with it. It's almost exactly like 21. If someone says the number in any context, you would just say 21, but why do we see this in anime? For example, look at Kaguya-Sama Love is War. The main cast is in the 67th Student Council, and at the beginning of the second season, we see the end of the school year and also the disbanding of the current Student Council. This whole episode is just super deep, and we see things like subtle symbols that are seemingly random but actually have much deeper meanings. For example, we see a secret room that many of the members didn't know about. What's weird and what makes it almost certainly a symbolism is that they don't do a gag with it or anything. They just kinda go, damn, that was there, and briefly explain that this was likely a secret room used to host meetings during the height of the student movement in Japan. A very real and very significant part of Japanese history. The fact that they took the time to add it makes it an actually significant thing. The show is trying to say something. The student movement and what it represents plays into a deep, subtle theme within the story. And just in general, but especially within that episode, I think they take a very Edgar Allan Poe-like view on writing where every element has a purpose. And this was the first time in the entire show where they state that this was the 67th Student Council. Why would they do that here? What significance does that number have? And this is what I looked a dumb amount into, and I believe that there's an actual significance to this number. I think the most obvious place to look first is any year that ends in 67, and during my research for the student movement in Japan, I found out that 1967 is the year that this movement started to rise. It reached its climax during 1968 and 1969, but the major build up to this was in 67. This makes a lot of sense as they did directly mention this movement just moments prior. 67 just seems to be an important number in that regard. Even a century before this, 67 acts as an important year. 1867 was the year that the Tokugawa shogunate was abdicated from its position. This ended the 265-year-long Edo period and started the Meiji era, a really progressive era for Japan as it quickly moved away from a feudalistic secluded society and transitioned into an industrialized nation recognized by the world. This marks the beginning of the single biggest rise in power Japan has ever had, so I think the number 67 in Japanese history is a really significant one. It marks the end of traditionalism and conservatism, it marks the end of bad times, it represents fighting and rebellion, it represents change and growth. More specifically, I think the boundary between 67 and 68 is a time of transition. 1967 was just the build-up to the climax of the student movement. 1867 was just the beginning of the end of the Tokugawa shogunate. The actual big changes, the climaxes, all happen in 68. It's the same in Kaguya-Sama. The 67th Student Council took place in the first season and just acted as a brooding phase of their romance. Nothing in particular happened. When the plot, the character change, and everything else goes wild is during the second and third seasons, the time of the 68th Student Council. Some manga spoilers up ahead, so here's your warning. Also, if you haven't, go read the fucking manga already. This number can represent rebellion, The time between 1967 and 1968 was the start of one of the most important movements, protests, and instances of rebellion Japan has ever had. It was a revolution. And what happens during the 68th Council? Rebellion, a revolution. Kaguya is taken away and secluded by the Shinomiya family. What does the 68th Council do? They rebel. They take her back by force. And what really happens? Kaguya is set free. She's over the Shinomiya family's traditional reign. And of course, we're shown time and time again throughout the whole story that the Shinomiya family is a very traditional one with very traditional beliefs. They believe in absolute power and righteousness. They believe in things like bloodlines. They believe that men are better than women. Her being freed from all that is just like the end of an era. And of course, this is all tied together into a neat little Chibi Kaguya-sized package by the fact that this is narratively the climax of the story, just as it was the climax for these real-world events. I think that's the strongest match in theory for now, but that's not the only one I have. There's one that has to do with linguistics rather than history. But for that, you have to be somewhat familiar with the Japanese language and a Japanese style of wordplay called koroawase. I'll try to keep the explanation as brief as I can. So in the Japanese language, there's kanji. Kanji are symbols that have meaning on its own, but also a phonetic sound associated with it. But sometimes there are multiple ways to pronounce a single kanji. It largely depends on the context and words and characters around it. For example, this kanji means language or speak and is pronounced go in the context of Nihongo or Eigo. Those two words mean the Japanese language and English language respectively. Also off topic, but about that word respectively, it's not respectfully, it's respectively. I hear a lot of people say respectfully, and that's just not how you use that word, so do not get it wrong. Do not piss me off here. You've been warned. Okay, but back to the kanji. When the kanji is next to this symbol, pronounced ru, the kanji is pronounced kata to form the full word of kataru, meaning to tell the story of. Numbers also have the same system, and koroawase is the wordplay of substituting the numbers with the phonetic sounds that can be attributed to them to form different words or meanings. Simply put, they're just number puns. Think like, when is the dentist's favorite time? It's 2:30 because 2:30, right? You know how they have a sound and you get it. The most famous example of this I could find in anime is from Monkey D. Luffy and his number 56. The numbers 5 and 6 both have multiple pronunciations. Also, off topic again, another pet peeve, it's not pronunciation, it's pronunciation. But back to the video, sorry. 5 can be pronounced as go and 6 can be pronounced as mu. Put together, it makes gomu, which is the name of the fruit Luffy ate, gomu gomu no mi. This is why Luffy often wears a shirt that says this. People also use the English pronunciations for koroawase too, which I find really funny. For example, 1-1 can be read as 1-1, which is the Japanese way of making dog noises. I remember seeing a YouTube short on this exact topic with 6-7, and the guy said that koroawase doesn't exist for 6-7, but he's just not right. I mean, there are a few words that can be created with the sounds of 6 and 7. The character for 6 can be pronounced a total of 3 ways: roku, ro, and mu. 7 can be pronounced nana or shichi, but it's often shortened to just na in many forms of koroawase. Wikipedia also includes chi as a possible pronunciation, but I've never heard of this, and as far as I can tell, it isn't used that way. So I did what any sane man would do and just started putting shit together. Rokushichi isn't a word, roshichi too. Mushichi does yield a result on jisho.org, but it doesn't seem to mean anything as it's the name of some foreign duke or something. And his name is actually Mushichui, not Mushichi. So I doubt it has anything to do with him. Then I tried rokuna, which means satisfactory, decent, good, proper, or respectable. And I think that's just a perfect way to describe the student council. I don't know if that's the exact intended meaning of 6-7 here, but I know for sure that there is one. They named the episode for it the 67th Student Council. It's definitely important enough where there is some symbolism or meaning behind it, but that's my leading theory so far. If you have another one or know more about this topic, let me know in the comments. And also, subscribe while you're at it. It helps a lot. I also want to take this time to mention some possible misconceptions. Something that you guys should know is that these aren't the authors or creators playing into the joke, as these were created before the meme was popularized, and it just isn't a big part of Japanese culture. Some people who are chronically online and more involved with online culture may know it, but the number 6-7 to the general population of Asia is simply just a number. I also should mention that I don't think it's the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon or frequency illusion, the cognitive bias humans have that makes us tend to seemingly seemingly hear words or songs or see logos or whatever else more right after you learn the meaning. It's not that people magically use these words or play these songs more right after you learn about them, it's just more that you notice it now. Let's try this. Here's the word zeitgeist. The definition is the defining spirits or mood of a particular period of time. So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein portrayed the zeitgeist of her time, the height of the scientific revolution. Now that you kinda know what it means, you'll probably start to hear the word more in random places, but I don't think it's that. It is true that I do notice these numbers more now that I know of the meme, which caused me to look into this to begin with, but I think there's just a little too much of it, and also it's just a bit too symbolic in some of these instances for it to be an arbitrary number. Let's look at another instance of this. I've already made a video on this vampire, but she wore a jersey that says 6'7". Why? Well, using 고로아와세 in a similar fashion, you can form the words muna and muchi. Muchi means stupid or ignorant, but like I said earlier, I don't think 7 is used in this fashion where it's just chi, so though it would fit her as that is kind of her character, I think this might be kind of a stretch. But if not, and 7 can be used this way, this works much better. But let's look at what muna means. Muna is the kanji reading in the word for munashi. This word has many meanings. One of them is fruitless, futile, or ineffective, which is what Luna is as a vampire. The whole point of the show is that she can't suck blood well and kinda sucks, see what I did there, at being a vampire. Also, the show sucks. See what I did there? So don't watch it. This word munashi can also mean empty, void, or vacant with a more negative connotation, so we see this number often representing the feeling of emptiness and despair. That's what Akaza was feeling when he killed the 67 people. And in that show too, I think it's just too deep of a scene for them to just pick a random number. I think the number 67 there symbolizes his feeling of emptiness after losing everything in his life. Similarly, in Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night's third episode, you see Kiwi wear a shirt that has the number 67 on it. And sure enough, her whole ordeal was that she's a big streamer and everyone likes her online, but she's an outcast and lacks real-world human connections, making her feel void and empty. It can also be the other definition of pointless or futile because her streaming could be a way of her coping with her loneliness and a way for her to possibly not feel as lonely. Little does she know, it is a wasted effort as fake online connections will never replace genuine ones. Actually, I think this definition of munashi can also fit for the Demon Slayer example, as Akaza killing those 67 people was pointless. It ultimately wouldn't make him feel better. There was just no point in anything. One more interesting thing that I found was in Sword Art Online. I posted this on my community post page during my research of this video. Thank you to everyone who responded, but shout out to Dominic Summers 7187 as he replied, Sword Art Online, anime episode 9, 1702, Kirito says, we haven't lost a player in a boss fight since floor 67. And I got interested. Why floor 67? Well, SAO has 100 floors and 67 is just 2/3 of it, so maybe that's the reason? 2/3 is just a nice checkpoint. It will make sense that someone died there because it's 2/3. It probably has a bigger boss or something. Or it could even be completely arbitrary and random here, as I just couldn't find any information that may elude any meaning. I'm just gonna assume that it's because of 2/3. This is also why I didn't talk about any percentage in this video, as 2/3 is a pretty significant and common number, and 2/3 is just 66.6%, which can be easily rounded to 67%. I'm sure there are a lot of times percentages were used this way in anime as well. But back to SAO, I think a way more interesting piece of information comes from the Sword Art Online roleplay wiki. To be fair, as far as I can tell, this is a D&D style fan created thing, so not anything official, and it's made by English speaking users, so this might actually just be a coincidence. But they say that the boss for floor 67 is the Drake of Infinite Void. If you remember, that is one of the definitions of munashi, an empty void. This one I actually think is just a coincidence, as this seems like an unofficial wiki, and even if it is translated to Japanese, munashi is used as an adjective rather than a noun, but it's still very interesting that this is the case. One last instance of this is in Haikyuu, where they pretty constantly say that a certain character is 6'7". Let's take a look at what this symbolizes. This symbolizes the idea of dumb fucking Americans. Nah, I'm just kidding. Us Americans are not all dumb. We're insanely stupid to a deadly degree. But to be fair, it is easy to make this mistake. 6'7" is just an empirical measurement for being 2 meters tall. And because that's such a big checkpoint, you know, it's 2 full meters, 200 even centimeters, and because that's super unusual, they say that over and over again. It's similar to 2/3 as a percentage in the sense that these numbers just happen to align. And I just want to state that there is a possibility that this whole video is pointless and the number 67 was just completely arbitrary in all of these cases. I could have just found meanings that weren't actually there, but I think it's more fun this way. I think it's cooler when there are hidden meanings to things like this which you can hyperanalyze. Like, this is just a theory, a film theory, and if I find out that I'm wrong in the future, that's fine too, I guess, but for now, I think there is a pretty good chance that I'm right here. Some of these cases are very symbolic. The Kaguya-Sama episode was really deep and had other pieces of hidden symbolism, so much so that I would find it weird if they specified this super specific random number, but it ended up not having a meaning. Like, imagine if every super random scene in The Shining, like the picture at the end or the scene where the bear was blowing the guy, was pointless. That would be kind of boring and even a bad writing choice as they set things up that have no meaning. In Kaguya-Sama, I feel like if it really wasn't that big of a deal, they just wouldn't mention it at all and just call it this generation of the student council and not specifically the 67th one. It's also super interesting that a lot of the other cases seem to line up with the possible meanings of 67 from Goro Awase. It happens so consistently and so often that I just feel like it has to mean something. But again, to all the doubters, this whole video is just conjecture. This is me stating this here. I don't have solid proof, just a correlation. I'm sure you can find plenty of other scenes with similar themes, but with no association to 67 or even associations to completely other numbers. So go look for these cases and let me know in the comments, I guess. And that's about all I have to say, but sitting here really thinking about it, wow, I really just made a whole video on 67. I bet my parents are super proud. Also, subscribe. 100k by the end of the year. You can also win $1 million. I'm not implying anything, I'm not saying that you will win $1 million if you subscribe or anything, but I'm just saying, subscribe. You can win $1 million. These are separate sentences, alright? So, subscribe. You can win $1 million. Subscribe. Well, there you have it. My name is NoahBoahCoah, and hey Jason, I know you're watching this. This is a message to you. Fuck you, bitch. And thank you for watching.